Good morning, everyone. Nathaniel Gavronsky here, and I'm in New York City. And today is 9/11. 9/11 in 2001 was a day that Americans learned about what a lot of other countries around the world have been dealing with for quite some time. Islamic fundamentalism and terrorism is not something that just started in September of 2001. Many other countries have been dealing with it for a decade, actually. And we're trying to, get it to where they could get rid of it. They're trying to get people to quit following this perverted version of Islam. However, it has spread. Instead of trying to get rid of it, the problem has since gotten worse. And it's gotten worse because people are arguing that these people should be able to do these things, and then they are rewarded by the international community for doing these things. September 11th, the actions and the motives of those hijackers wasn't for some freedom fight. It wasn't for some noble cause. It wasn't for the attempt to make the world a better place. It was for the sole purpose of telling people that did not subscribe to their point of view that you are going to do as we say, or we are going to blindly start murdering your children. Those hijackers didn't care that people in those buildings weren't political. They didn't care that people in those buildings were just trying to feed their families. They didn't care that those people in the buildings were other people's mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sons, daughters, nieces, nephews. They didn't care that these people had families. The only thing the terrorists wanted was to change America, to make them by force, by absolute force and terror and fear, to be something other than American. That somehow, for some reason, the American society was so corrupt, so evil, that the only way to change it was to burn it to the ground. That was the motive of the 9/11 hijackers. It wasn't some freedom fight. It wasn't activism, it was terrorism. That's what it was. No one disagrees with me that 9/11 was an act of absolute terror by people that had state sponsorship in the actions of telling another group of people that they should die because they do not follow the religion and the teachings the way that the terrorists wanted them to. So America, you have a unique experience. The 7/7 bombers in London, same thing. They didn't care if those people just commuting to work were trying to feed their families. Nothing. All those people from the 7/7 bombers in London, they wanted to tell people of England, you need to do as we say or we will burn your civilization to the ground. That was 7/7. Now what about the Paris concert attacks, huh? What about those? Again, Western Europe, Muslim terrorist, perverting the word of Islam to their perspective, which was anyone who does not follow, anyone who is not part of their specific point of view needs to die. That's it. Terrorism is not activism. These people weren't freedom fighters. These people weren't trying to, improve the world, feed the hungry. They weren't trying to liberate a group of people that were being oppressed. In fact, they themselves were the oppressors. And across the world, these fundamental Islamists are oppressive to the other people who live amongst them. No one in their right mind would say every Muslim or every Arab is a terrorist. It's blatantly not correct. But no one seems to want to call out when these terrorists are killing their own, because some of those people don't subscribe to the point of view that everyone who's not Muslim should die. But that happens all the time around the Arab world. Those who want peace and tranquility and to have open borders for trade and for tourism that no, that they must close them. They must only subscribe to hate and destruction and the death of everybody else. That's the terrorist. That's Hamas. That's Hezbollah. So now we get to Israel. October 7th, 2023. What do you think the actions, the point of these actions, the cause of these people that made them do these actions? Was it for some freedom fight? This wasn't a protest. This was homicide on a mass scale. All right? Now, Hamas is the elected body of government in Gaza. Governments typically have armies. I don't care if the country is recognized. The United States wasn't recognized by the whole world in 1776. The U.S. had an army. Canada, which was part of the Commonwealth of a different nation, England, had 2 rebellions that took place in Canada, and it wasn't even an official independent country yet. And they were putting down rebellions. They had an army. They have a provisional government. They had an army. So the saying that Hamas is not an army, well, they have a government. Governments typically have armies. This was a military incursion onto a nation that no one had notified that they had been declared war on. Every single Jew, dead or alive, was moved from Gaza long before October 7th. Long before October 7th. People from Gaza were allowed to come into Israel and work. Go back to Gaza, come into Israel and work. Israel provided for food, water, electricity into Gaza. And all at Gaza, the government of Gaza, Hamas, did in return was threaten that we are going to kill all the Jews. So October 7th. Activism is that the same thing as terrorism? I can go and be an activist for any cause I want. I can go out to the streets of New York City and be an activist for better rights for people who are disabled. I can go and ask for better rights for people that immigrated here legally and need a more reasonable system and a more affordable system to immigrate here legally. That's activism. I can go be an activist for pro-life, pro-choice. That's activism. Okay? Now, every single one of you that believe in, the pro-choice movement, believe that when someone goes and bombs an abortion clinic, that is not activism, that is terrorism, right? I actually agree that would be classified as terrorism, not activism. I don't care what the motives are. What happened on October 7th and what happened on September 11th were the same action. They were terrorism. And anyone who supported the terrorist in September 2001 and October and November 2001, we would not have supported. We would not be having protest rallies in their honor. That's what's going on in New York right now. On the day after American hostages were murdered by Hamas, there were rallies in support of the murderers. People were in support of those who killed people's children and saying that they're the good guys. I'm sorry, but terrorists are not the good guys. These aren't freedom fighters. These are warlords. A freedom fighter wouldn't take their own and shoot them because they wanted food from a humanitarian food truck. The humanitarian food truck, by the way, was provided by Israel, guided through by the UN, and meant for all citizens and all peoples and everyone living in Gaza. Hamas? Nope, that's only for us. It's only for our fighters. We don't care if everyone else starves. It's only for us. They are taking all of it and using it as ability to keep up the fight against those who want their children back. How many of you, I don't care if you're liberal, I don't care if you're conservative, I don't care if you're purple, blue, green, I don't care. Zero cares. How many of you in 2001 believe that we should have been giving more aid to the Taliban? Anyone? Seriously, who thinks that we should have been giving aid to the Taliban in 2001? Don't mind that currently under the Biden administration, we're actually spending a good amount of the money that we were spending every month in Afghanistan militarily, that we are now giving the Taliban almost the same amount of money. Almost the same amount of money just to tell girls that they no longer have a right to speak in public. Where are you at, feminist? Where's the Me Too moment for the Afghan girls? No, you guys want to support this crazy nonsense that these terrorist and terrorist-minded people want. We want to go. So we believe the Taliban has a right to tell women they can't speak, but we're going to tell Americans that all because you're not checking all the right boxes that you're a misogynist pig. America's got a problem on its hand, and it is the progressives. The progressives just see everyone as either an oppressor or oppressed. And regardless of anything else, if you are viewed in their eyes as the oppressed, then everyone else who is seen as the oppressed should be on the same side. They say that LGBTQ plus and the queer community, that they should be equally supportive, and a lot of these women's right groups, they should be equally supportive of Hamas and the Taliban for that matter. However, if any of them would have ever stepped foot into Gaza or the West Bank, where the majority Muslim areas, or Kabul, they would be stoned to death or thrown off buildings. What the progressives are arguing for, and what is reasonably sane, cannot stand in the same room together. So on this anniversary of 9/11, I want you to put yourself back in your shoes, not someone else's, your shoes in 2001. If you weren't born yet, talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents, ask them what it was like. And then I want you to put yourselves in those shoes, and then tell yourself from 2001 that the terrorist had a right to attack. The terrorist had the right to blow up those buildings, kill those 3,000 Americans. Because if you're supporting Hamas, you're telling every single one of those dead Americans, every single one of those people whose names are on that monument downtown New York, that they're at fault for dying that day. The Jews left Gaza. They fed them, they gave them power, they sent them water, they gave them jobs. I don't care what your opinion is of the Prime Minister of Israel. I don't care what your opinion is of anything else. When you look at what happened in 2001, and you look at what happened on October 7th of 23, it's the same action. It is terrorism. It is terrorism. It's not activism. Because they tried to manipulate those that did not see their point of view to either do what they're told or die. Those were the only options. And if you honestly believe that Hamas is correct and we should find a way to support Hamas, then you are the same people that killed those 3,000 Americans on 9/11/2001. This is Nathaniel Gavronsky and the Metropolitan Republican Club of New York City, wishing everyone a solemn and heartfelt remembrance of those who died on September 11, 2001. May they not may they not have died in vain. May their memory live on in the actions that we take to prevent this from happening again. Because when we say never again, like we said at the end of World War II, And like we said in 2001, never again should be never again. That is what you should remember. Thank you, and have a good day.